Boom, we are alive, a bear family. Just got a quick update for you all today. We're going to keep it very concise. No more live videos just because it was very hard to keep everything going. I did try my best though, because I liked the live communication aspect with you guys. With the traveling and the jungle internet, it was basically impossible. So from here on out, pre-recorded videos. Bitcoin on the 6-hour chart is what we're looking at now. So, I originally thought we would get to around 52,000, and the same thing happened with the previous downside. I thought we'd go to 36, but we only went down to 38. So one of the things there is just a high likelihood of demand in the market. And I think this is one of the changes of characters. So this kind of low volume spring that we had for Bitcoin, I think was really important. There's a few things that took place there in that moment that were very bullish. It was the amount of supply that came in, which was quite significant. If you look down here, there's a big chunk of supply that came in. Limited downside, especially as the supply started to increase around the $57,000 area. And then how much demand it took to completely recover all of that downside. This is the bullish change of character that I feel took place. So I believe the chances of going down now are very low in comparison with when we were right here after this spring. If we did not recover the point of control, which we did here on this particular visible frame at this moment, which became the first reaccumulation range we've seen as well. And at the very back of the reaccumulation after the spring, which is something we've seen so often, is wait for the spring, look for reaccumulation that ends up being the test. So if you've been studying this with us, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you have not been studying with us and you want to know more, you can just go to the website or join our newsletter. But nonetheless, I'm going to rip through these pretty fast here because I think most of you should already be caught up with how this all works. And I don't really want to waste anyone's time. So near here has actually been really nice as well. One of the things I wanted to point out, we had a really high volume spring here with near. This was a really interesting one. Again, this is why I think being patient for secondary confirmations is so important, because when a high volume spring like this takes place, the first thought is always this is a sign of weakness and that we're going to see distribution. And I talked about this throughout the majority of the beginning part of this range, is that this is where profit taking is taking place. We're up 40, 20, 30x, depending on which asset you look at, 5x for things like Bitcoin, which have a significant amount more liquidity in it. So those are huge numbers. A high volume spring, it's better to wait. We got this secondary test. We talked about how this was looking like it was going to turn into an inverse head and shoulders, which is also what we saw. So nice inverse head and shoulders here. That broke us above the inverse head and shoulders. We tested that, which became the creek and the point of control here for near. And now we're right in what appears to be the testing of the top of the range as a kind of SOS and backup. Now, the thing I want to point out here is that this was the first reaccumulation range we've seen. So every time we've seen a run up in price, we've seen distribution take place. Here, the run up in price actually turned into accumulation. And this is a really important part to take note of as well. And it didn't just happen in near, it took place in other assets as well. So I believe we're right in the verge of going into an SOS phase for near, and other areas of the market are also indicating that too. Solana, great example. Into this falling range. Again, these falling horizontal ranges indicate that we are near the end of the market. The risk-to-reward relationship here is totally skewed. It's basically 50-50, which is why so much profit taking is taking place, where you see the price of Solana up at 208 and then a spring down to 115. Also, again, a high volume spring, indicating the likelihood that this market cycle is much closer to over than a lot of people think. And we are headed into the final stages of what will likely be euphoria. And sometimes this is the funnest, but it's also where the majority of the profit taking is very consistent. We're like shaving off percentages every day, and that buying and selling becomes more and more noticeable. So the spring for Bitcoin here was very strong. It was very, actually, I wanted to share this too. Very interesting. If we zoom in on those particular dates here, why can't I zoom in right now? Why is my other mouse not working? Is it on? It's on. Okay. Weird. Just, well, we're going to pre-record this anyway. So I could edit this out. Why is this not working? Okay, well, either way, what I wanted to do is point out here this change where you have a significant amount of selling and then a significant amount of buying. This was actually the spring here. This was the significant amount of selling and the significant amount of buying. And this was the switch of character. Again, we saw what appears to be a really nice inverse head and shoulders, the test being the right-hand side of the shoulder. We've now moved into the jump across the creek here, and we are right into the creek for Bitcoin. So many of the other assets like Solana and Near, I think, are already across the creek. TON is also showing across the creek here as well. But because Bitcoin is stuck there and other assets have already moved ahead, I assume that Bitcoin's going to move ahead above the creek. It's going to want to try to test into the creek as deep as possible, which is around 64.5. Again, at this point, it's unlikely that we get there just because of how dramatic this effort versus result shift was in the spring. So that will probably be the last chance to dance, although it does like to go deep. So 64.5, and then I believe we get what turns into a clear SOS of around 71, and then into new highs. But again, this is near the end of the bull market here, so just be cautious about that. Yeah, here's an example with no drawings on it. TON also looks good. Hyper overvalued, but the hype there is likely positive and useful for everyone. So I assume it will continue. Looks nice here. Fetch right below the creek, also showing first signs of reaccumulation within the trading range. Not above the creek yet, got a little bit further to go, but I suspect we'll see the breakout of the creek probably today for Fetch. Avalanche, again, there's just so much volatility here. I was a big fan of this. I've built other positions throughout this. I still have the Avalanche position, but at this moment, although I think we're getting what appears to be a reaccumulation range, we're going to get an SOS and a jump up. The fact that we're below the previous internal high structure is not a great sign. So I assume Avalanche will be one of the weaker ones here. At this point, when you're riding a weaker asset, it is almost better just to sell and then switch. And Avalanche gave some of those signals here. I wish I would have paid more attention to them. These really sharp, dramatic wicks down showed a real big weakness within the supply structure of the open market versus those who are the big sellers in the field right now. So I think ultimately that's what led to such huge downside for Avalanche. We basically returned all the way to the bottom of the trading range of the previous range of the bullish movement, which is just not a good look for Avalanche. And then just finally, we'll end with the S&P 500. We broke into new all-time highs again. We are probably going to see a little bit of downside just to test the resistance of this, and then a continuation upside for the S&P 500 too. But I think we're going to go into extreme bullish mode for the S&P 500 TradFi. It'll bring all the other markets along with it. AI is probably going to drive a lot of that. I guess what I'll do is I'll end with this. For those of you that have been playing with the ChatGPT 4.0, if you'll probably already know this, but if you haven't, I want you to go play with ChatGPT 4.0. I believe it's free right now. And I want to explain something to you, at least in the way I think it's operating, which is right now you have a system that's able to hear and see and read code and language better than most humans. And that's all one neural network. Whereas before, this was all done with multiple networks, different versions of machine learning. To have one language model that sees all of those things, visual, audio, text, code, as one language is beyond what humans can do. Humans already, what we do is we separate language, like, oh, this is the English language, and this is what painting looks like, this is what music looks like. Whereas right now it appears to me that the code is able to interpret all of those things as one language, and that might be a brilliant fucking idea that very few of us think about. So when I'm looking at technology and I don't understand what's going on exactly, what I try to do is look at what I do understand. And if I what I'm perceiving to be is correct here is you have an omnimodal model which can perceive all things basically as one language, That's like what meditation is about, trying to reach, just to see all of the stream of consciousness as one language. Anyways, Tio the Arcane Bear, just a short little update. We'll see you guys again on the next episode.